Snow drifted down like ash from a dying sky, muffling the world in a silence too heavy for comfort. The mountain valley stretched white and endless, the kind of place that swallowed sound and memory alike. Beneath the frozen veil, a small squad of soldiers lay half-buried, rifles steady, breath slow. The oldest among them, broad-shouldered, bearded, eyes sharp as frost, watched through his scope without blinking. The others called him Holt, though half the unit whispered the name with a reverence bordering on myth. Holt's face was carved from years of weather and war. His beard, long and silver, caught the flakes like frost wire. Beneath his snow camo, he wore a faded patch stitched with a red and white cap, a small rebellion against uniformity. The men teased him for it at first, until they realized he didn't care. He'd been fighting wars before most of them were born, and somehow he kept coming back. There was something eternal about him, something the cold couldn't erode. Through his scope, Holt watched the valley floor below. The snow shimmered unnaturally there, bending light around faint ripples of distortion. The Valkyr were coming, sleek, metallic figures gliding on anti-grav skiffs, armor glinting with blue phosphor veins. The enemy didn't bother hiding. They wanted to be seen. Above the wind, their broadcast speakers crackled to life, a chorus of synthetic voices laced with cruel amusement. Primitive organisms, the alien voice sneered. You bring relics to a war of precision. Holt smirked, adjusting the focus. Guess we'll see whose relic breaks first, he murmured. Private Ellison, the youngest in the squad, shifted nervously beside him. Sir, are they really mocking us? Like mocking you? They're scared, Holt said. Mockery's just fear dressed up to sound tall. Ellison swallowed, glancing at Holt's weathered rifle, a weapon older than he was, modified with scavenged tech and a hand-carved stock. It looked absurd beside the sleek plasma rifles of modern warfare. Yet Holt handled it as if it were an extension of his arm. The comm unit crackled. Command to Wideout Squad. The Valkyr relay dish has begun assembly sequence. Coordinates uploaded. The relay must not activate. You have one window. Holt tapped the side of his headset. Copy that. Weak point. Crystal resonator. Mid-spire. Exposed only during calibration. 5 seconds of vulnerability. 5 seconds, Holt repeated. He exhaled through his teeth. Guess I'll have to make it count. Ellison looked up from his HUD, disbelief flickering across his face. That's 130 clicks out. Sir, that's impossible. Holt finished for him. Yeah, that's what they said about landing on the moon, too. He checked the wind meter strapped to his wrist, though he barely needed it. He could feel the air, sense the subtle pressure shifts. The mountain spoke its own language, and Holt had learned to listen. Snow thickened, cutting visibility to a blur. The alien forces advanced methodically, setting up their perimeter. Holt could hear their laughter through the calm waves, distorted and metallic, like a choir of ghosts. Your kind ages, deteriorates, fades, one voice hissed. We transcend decay. Funny thing about decay, Holt muttered. It's patient, just like me. He adjusted his rifle's bipod, sinking deeper into the snow. Around him, his squad exchanged anxious glances. They trusted him, but trust didn't make miracles easier to believe in. All right, Holt said softly, his tone more command than comfort. We hold here until I've got the shot. Doesn't matter what comes over that ridge. You keep your heads down and your heart steady. The storm thickened, turning the world into a white blur. Somewhere beyond the veil, alien lights pulsed like heartbeats in the dark. Holt steadied his breathing, feeling his pulse slow to match the rhythm of falling snow. In that frozen silence, before the storm truly broke, he whispered to no one in particular, "Let's show them what old bones can still do." And the mountains seemed to listen. Holt lay perfectly still, letting the cold burrow through his suit as if it were trying to claim him. The squad around him shifted to new positions, their movements careful but edged with tension. Every soldier felt the weight of what command had just demanded, but only Holt showed no visible shock. He simply breathed, slow and measured, absorbing the magnitude of the challenge as though it were an old companion returning for one final visit. The wind howled across the valley, dragging streams of snow into chaotic spirals, but Holt seemed anchored in a stillness untouched by the storm. Ellison crawled closer, careful not to disturb Holt's firing line. Anxiety marked every line of the young soldier's face, but his voice stayed steady. "Sir, I pulled the satellite feed. The relay dish is larger than we expected. And the resonator, if you miss, even by a hair—" "There won't be a miss," Holt replied quietly, adjusting the rifle's elevation. His gloved fingers moved with a grace that contradicted his age, each motion deliberate and certain. "Not today." Ellison hesitated, then whispered, "They're saying even the Valkyr sharpshooters couldn't hit a target that small at that distance." "That's because they rely on sensors," Holt said, eyes narrowing through the scope. "They trust the machines more than themselves. That's their weakness." The valley shuddered with the hum of alien machinery as the Valkyr relay dish unfurled its metallic petals, each segment glowing with ominous blue veins. From this distance, it resembled an enormous frozen flower blooming under an artificial sun. Holt could see faint pulses running along its spine, the unmistakable heartbeat of a device coming alive. The calibration cycle would begin soon. Above the wind, alien broadcasts resumed, this time more mocking than before. "We detect your archaic projectile weapon. We detect your failing biometrics. Your effort is statistically irrelevant." Holt allowed himself a faint smile. That voice could use better manners. He studied the storm as intently as he studied the enemy. Wind direction fluctuated unpredictably, twisting the snowfall into spiraling eddies. The air carried hidden turbulence, invisible to the eye but not to instinct. Holt inhaled deeply, letting the scent of ice and metal guide his calculations. The crack in the shield cycle would be brief, 5 seconds at most, and the resonator was no larger than a coin. Hitting it would require more than skill. It would demand a lifetime of knowing the world through a rifle's gaze. Behind him, Corporal Danner tightened his grip on his weapon. "Sir, if you don't take the shot, we'll have to fall back. There's no way we survive a Valkyr fleet drop." "That's why I'm taking it," Holt said. "You just worry about staying alive long enough to see whether I pull it off." A low tremor rippled through the snow as alien skiffs repositioned, their hulls glowing brighter in anticipation of the relay's activation. The squad tensed, weapons raised, but Holt didn't flinch. He leaned closer to his rifle, cheek pressing against the worn stock. Ellison whispered, "How can you be so calm?" "Because panic wastes time," Holt murmured. "And I've only got one shot." A sudden gust tore through the valley, briefly revealing a clear corridor through the storm. Holt's eyes sharpened. The calibration sequence began. The resonator slid into position, exposed for a fleeting moment. The shield flickered, cycling through its vulnerable phase. Holt exhaled, long and even, letting the world narrow to a single point of light thousands of meters away. His heartbeat slowed until it matched the rhythm of the falling snow. Then, with the certainty of a man who had lived his entire life for this single instant, Holt squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked, the sound swallowed almost immediately by the storm, and the bullet began its impossible journey into the blinding white abyss ahead. The bullet tore from Holt's rifle with a muted thunder, vanishing into the storm as though the blizzard itself had swallowed it. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Even the wind seemed to pause, holding its breath with the soldiers who watched the impossible unfold. Holt didn't blink. He followed the invisible path in his mind, calculating every shift of air, every subtle pressure drop the valley exhaled. The world had narrowed to a silent equation, one written in ice, distance, and instinct sharpened by decades of war. Ellison strained to see anything through the swirling white. "Sir, do you think?" "Thinking's done," Holt murmured, still as stone. "Now we watch." Far ahead, the bullet sliced through a curtain of sleet that bent its trajectory ever so slightly. The atmospheric turbulence tried to claim it, pulling the round into a chaotic drift, but Holt had predicted that. He knew the valley's temper. He had read every whisper of the wind before taking the shot. The round spun onward, carving a fragile path through shifting conditions that would have defeated any sensor-driven calculation. The Valkyr detected the projectile a second later. Their scanners lit with alarm, broadcasting sharp, clipped warnings across the battlefield. Alien voices rose in a discordant chorus. Projectile incoming. Probability of impact negligible. Initiate countermeasures. Hovering turrets whirred to life around the relay dish, their metallic throats glowing as they fired lances of coherent light into the storm. Bright beams cut through the snowfall, illuminating the valley in intermittent flashes. Each beam snapped across the bullet's projected path, trying to melt, vaporize, or deflect it. But visibility was degraded by the storm, and the targeting sequences struggled to keep up with the bullet's erratic but meticulously anticipated route. Holt's squad pressed deeper into the snow as the sky above them erupted with alien fire. Danner whispered, awe creeping into his voice. They're scared. They actually believe it can hit. Holt didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the horizon, as though he could see through the blizzard itself. A fractured drone fragment, remnant of earlier skirmishes, tumbled through the air, caught in a violent gust. The bullet struck the debris, grazing it with a kiss of steel on metal. The collision shaved a sliver off its jacket and altered its angle by a few degrees, exactly as Holt had expected. The round veered, now aligned with a narrow corridor between two defense beams that fired out of rhythm with the others. Alien operators shrieked in frustration, their voices merging into a static-laced roar. Trajectory shift detected. Recalibrating. Recalculate. Recalculate. The shield around the relay flickered, entering its vulnerability cycle. For 5 seconds the resonator stood exposed, glowing with the delicate luminescence of crystalline machinery. The Valkyr scrambled to compensate, trying desperately to re-establish the barrier, but calibration protocols locked them out. They could only watch. Then the bullet emerged from the storm like a ghost freed from the snow. It struck the resonator dead center. The impact produced no dramatic explosion, only a sharp, crystalline crack that echoed across the valley like a bell being struck. The resonator shattered, shards dissolving into glowing dust. A soft pulse radiated outward, rippling through the dish's structure. The hum of power stuttered, faltered, and then collapsed entirely. The relay dish convulsed as its internal systems failed, each component going dark in a cascading chain reaction. Blue veins of energy sputtered and dimmed. The towering spire sagged as though relieved of a terrible burden, then collapsed into the snow with a muted, metallic groan. Silence swept the valley. Even the alien broadcasts fell mute. Ellison exhaled shakily. He actually did it. Only then did Holt withdraw from a scope. His expression didn't change, but something old and weary in his eyes softened. Told you, he said quietly. One shot's all I ever need. But as the squad absorbed the victory, the distant lights of the alien formation flickered in agitation. The Valkyr were stunned, but not finished. Holt saw it before anyone else. The shifting shadows, the restless hum rolling across the valley. Them losing their dish, he said, rising slowly, means they've only got one option left. He tightened his grip on his rifle. They're coming. The valley trembled as the alien formation reorganized, their luminous armor pulsing in frantic patterns that betrayed their shock. Holt stood slowly, joints protesting the cold, but his posture radiated steadiness. The destroyed relay dish smoldered in the distance, its collapse echoing like a verdict across the winter battlefield. Yet victory had only opened the door to a new danger. Cut off from their fleet, the Valkyr soldiers surged forward in desperation, abandoning precision for fury. Their skiffs dipped low, blue lights flaring like angry comet tails as they prepared a retaliatory strike to erase the humans who had humiliated them. Ellison crawled up beside Holt, breath steaming, eyes wide with the realization of what was coming. Sir, we should reposition. They'll try to overrun us before reinforcements arrive. We're not running, Holt said, checking his last loaded magazine. They think desperation makes them unstoppable. It just makes him sloppy. Danner cursed under his breath as alien pulses scorched the snow around their position. Sloppy still kills fast, old man. Then don't let it touch you, Holt replied, a hint of dry humor softening the grimness. The squad tightened their formation, adjusting firing angles while using the drifting snow as a makeshift veil. Alien silhouettes blurred in the storm, approaching in erratic bursts of speed. Holt signaled for the men to wait. His calm settled over them like an anchor. The youngest soldiers breathed a little slower, steadied by the quiet authority in his stance. He'd given them a miracle once. They trusted he wasn't done leading them yet. When the first skiff broke through the haze, Holt fired. The round punched through its grav thruster, sending the craft spiraling into the valley floor. The explosion illuminated the snowbound battlefield, revealing dozens more enemies advancing in ragged lines. Plasma fire painted streaks of blue across the blizzard, but the humans moved with disciplined precision. Ellison shouted, "They're falling apart. They don't have coordination without the relay." "Exactly," Holt answered, picking his targets. "They came to crush us with numbers. Now, they're just noise." One by one, the Valkyr formation collapsed into disarray. Some tried to regroup, others scattered like fractured ice. Their sleek discipline had evaporated without the cold intelligence of their command network. The humans pressed forward, advancing meter by meter through snow and shattered metal. Holt moved with them, covering weak angles, guiding the squad with crisp gestures. The storm swallowed half the world, but he navigated it with uncanny certainty, as if he'd walked this battlefield in another lifetime. Minutes stretched into an hour before the last alien resistance crumbled. Those who remained fled into the blizzard, abandoning equipment and wounded alike. Human reinforcements arrived moments later, breathless and stunned to find the squad not only alive but victorious. Officers dismounted from armored transports, faces lit with disbelief as they took in the smoking remains of the relay dish. "You did it," one whispered to Holt, all overshadowing protocol. "You stopped the fleet." Holt shrugged off the praise, wiping frost from his brow. "I just stopped a signal. The war isn't done yet." But there was a softness in his gaze, a quiet recognition that the impossible shot had changed more than the course of the battle. It had reminded humanity, and perhaps even the enemy, what one determined soul could do. Later, when the field was secured, Holt walked alone to a rise overlooking the valley. Snow swirled around him in silent spirals, settling gently on his shoulders. He removed the worn red and white patch from his gear and placed it into the snow with a reverence reserved for ghosts. Ellison approached hesitantly. "Sir, you all right?" Holt nodded, eyes distant. "Just thinking about the ones who taught me how to take a hard shot. They'd have liked today's outcome." Ellison managed a smile. "What now?" Holt watched the storm ease, revealing the faint outline of a dawning sky. "Now we get ready for whatever comes next." And with that, the old sniper turned from the battlefield, leaving behind the shattered remains of fear, doubt, and an empire that had underestimated him.